Hi, my name is Lisa Richter. I am the Director of Industry Outreach and Growth for CSIA. Welcome to this masterclass. Before we get started, a quick word about CSIA. Maybe you are familiar with the association, but if you are not, all you really need to know is that CSIA's mission is to help system integrators build better businesses. How do we do that? Well, for starters, we have a team of volunteer SIs who have crowdsourced a best practices manual to help system integrators scale their businesses. In fact, the BP committee regularly reviews and updates this manual, and it's currently on the sixth edition. The committee is already planning for the next version. For those companies that want to take these best practices to the next level, CSA also offers a certification program that includes a third-party audit. Many companies find that this audit is extremely helpful for helping them understand their business and scale. CSA is also helping system integrators grow their businesses with a new learning hub, which is an online platform with content and playlists that have been sourced and vetted by seasoned system integrators to help our members get their teams up to speed quickly. Think of it kind of like Spotify. All the content is there, but imagine having a personal DJ who spent over 20 years getting to know your preferences and tailoring the perfect playlists for you. CSA also offers access to vetted professional services companies, including financial, insurance, and legal, who truly understand an SI's unique business needs. Something you will see for yourself today, as our speakers are with ECBM, which is CSIA's partner for our insurance program. This program is so popular that ECPM earned the CSIA Partner of the Year award in 2025. With thousands of qualified integrators and suppliers, the CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange helps SIs, industry suppliers, and manufacturers connect and do business. For SIs and partners, it provides a platform to support your content and SEO marketing efforts, position yourself as a thought leader, and nurture prospects during your complicated buyer's journey. If you are currently not a member, now is a great time to join. Membership provides you and your entire team a full lineup of virtual events and other resources from accounting to sales to operations to training 365 days per year. It also means you and your team can attend the CSIA conference because this annual in-person event is members only. If you are currently a member, thank you. If you want to just get a flavor of CSIA and its members, I encourage you to listen to the Talking Industrial Automation podcast. CSIA members talk all things industrial automation, and it's just a great way for you to hear what your peers are up to. One last housekeeping note before I turn it over to today's speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. That helps us stay organized. This session is being recorded, and you will get a link to the recording in the next day or so. At this time, I would like to turn it over to today's speakers. Tim and Mike, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. This is Michael Cunningham. I'm also here with my colleague, Tim Fox. Maybe you can say hello.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to sharing some insights with you in the world of cyber.
Yeah, this is a very important topic. It seems like it's the topic that we as insurance brokers, we're cornered in the room, and individuals want to know exactly how the cyber insurance market is going and some of the different things that they've heard through the grapevine have happened to some of their partners and colleagues. So today we'll wade through some of those things, discuss what cyber insurance does. We'll also talk about some claim scenarios that system integrators could face, as well as things that we've seen happen with respects to claims, and we'll talk about that. And of course, what's on everyone's tongue is AI, so we'll discuss that as well, and how it's affected both the insurers as well as the ones that are on this call, possibly, where it could affect you with respects to having a claim or having a loss. So we hope this is going to be very educational, and we can jump right in. Well, there's our faces. I'm again, Michael. I'm the one that's speaking currently. Tim will take over a little bit later down the road in this presentation. So, cyber. What exactly is cyber liability insurance? Well, we know that cyber attacks basically can be very costly to any organization. The bad actors, they do not discriminate. They are not looking for one specific industry. They are looking just to do what they do, and that's act in a bad manner, which can be very costly. And we'll talk about some of the costs associated with cyber attacks and the fallout thereafter. Um, Ultimately, cyber insurance is one way that can really backstop or play in a line of defense to provide financial protection for your organization. Some of the things that you may have heard over the years, the expenses that get covered by these cyber policies, and this is by no means an exhaustive list. It's just a few things just to get your attention to see and maybe hear some of the buzzwords throughout your conversations that you may have with different individuals. So data breaches, obviously, that's right at the top of the list. It's even made front page news, so to speak. Ransomware attacks, we see a lot of those. Probably daily phishing scams. Everyone should be familiar with those phishing scams, emails coming in. And then one we're going to talk about today, social engineering. Not as popular. People call it different things, but in the insurance world, especially with respects to cyber liability insurance, social engineering is something that we'll discuss. And there's some nuances to that. And we will definitely dive into that a little bit more. So specifically for system integrators, we talked about on a really like 50,000 foot level there about why cyber insurance, but really looking at the purpose for you and what you do. Um, Really, there could be system interruptions based on the professional services that you're providing. Those obviously cyber attacks and other digital security incidents that could occur. And the issue is that not only could it affect you, it could also affect your clients, disrupting their operations as well as your operations, depending on what industry that you're operating in. It could cause safety hazards, whether it's wastewater or maybe it's oil and gas. It could be life sciences. See, the different industries that you as system integrators you touch, it could cause major issues with respects to safety. And obviously, there's lots and lots of sensitive data attached to that with respects to your clients. So specifically, knowing how you operate, what you do, we recognize specifically with the carriers that we work with that you being connected to those different networks. Um, Sometimes having to connect to the internet to maybe download whatever it may be. And more importantly, being connected to your client's system. Maybe for the first, part of the job, you're, connecting with those systems. And then thereafter, there could be monitoring of those systems. So there's a lot of ways in which bad actors can find ways in to create a loss or a cyber attack that could affect both you and your clients. So we wrote here that this connectivity exposure can result in vulnerabilities, as was mentioned, to hacking, data theft, and loss of that data. So these policies, the way they're written, they help cover the costs related to those such breaches, including notification costs for ones. And interestingly enough, we hear all the time, well, there may not be any credit card data, but everyone has employees, and those employees have HR data, which on the black market are worth money. And that is something that we see stolen a lot, is just personal information, social security numbers, things of that sort, as well as the fallout, which we may not think of. If you cause damage or harm to one of your clients, it could affect their reputation. So reputational damage can result from the work that you're providing for your customers. So that's the third party, but also there's first party damages, which can result in financial loss directly to you. And now we're going to get into really those different types of coverages with respects to first party. So I mentioned that just in my last slide very briefly, but really the coverage is threefold. We have first party coverage, which is really any type of financial loss that you may experience as a company. So these policies specifically address that first party loss, and it's quite a few different types of losses associated with first party. And then what we've done is we've said there's first party coverages that are enhancements. We've come across a lot of different insurance policies over the years that don't have these enhancements. So we thought it was not interesting, but really thought it was important for you to understand what these first party coverage enhancements include, so that you have a very robust insurance policy available to you in the event of a loss. And then lastly is the third party coverage that the policies address. So what we'll do now is we'll go through each of those types of coverages one by one, and we'll talk about them kind of, we won't get into the weeds too much, but we will wade through just so you have an understanding and an overview of how these coverages work and what they cover. So we'll start with the first party coverage. So again, it affects you directly if there's some type of cyber incident that occurs. The costs that are associated with a first party loss, where you may have to respond to that incident. Well, there's additional funds that are associated with that. There's legal costs that may come up where you have to, hire forensic accountants and attorneys and different firms to help you to address this particular cyber incident. Then there's the loss of your data that could have been taken, it could have been corrupted. There's costs obviously associated with recovering all of that data. BI losses. Well, what is a BI loss? Well, it's the business income that you have now relinquished because of this cyber incident. So what is the cost associated with that? With your accounting, would you lose money if you weren't operating? More than likely, the answer is yes. So we've seen incidents that get rectified in 24, 48 hours, and then we've seen some go weeks. So having that large cost associated with that is something that is addressed by the cyber liability policy. This next one is something that you see on television and movies, and you realize that's probably just television and movies. Well, I hate to break it to you, but in all reality, we see that this is something that happens quite frequently: cyber extortion, where you get an email and the email is requesting 10, 20, 50, $100,000. And in the meantime, your entire system is shut down. It's being held hostage by the bad actors. And they are literally requesting a ransom. And until that ransom is paid, you can do nothing. This is, like I said, something made for the movies, but it actually happens. It's probably the second, I would say, second largest amount of claims that we see coming through is cyber extortion. So again, these policies are helping to backstop the cost associated with that. And I mentioned before too about reputational damage. That can happen to you as a company as well. If it gets out that you caused a loss, or the employees take to social media, whatever the case may be, that you lost their information and you didn't keep it safe. That was your duty to do so, but it didn't happen. Well, there's reputational damage. There's firms out there to help you to get your reputation back in order. And of course, there's cost associated with that. So that's that really the first party coverage and how policies can address those things, and they're available in the marketplace. Secondly, we talked about this first party coverage enhancements. Again, we've seen many policies that don't have these things, but these are important coverages to have. We're in a place now in the market that the cyber insurance has really plateaued after it took a nosedive with respects to premium. So these type of things are readily available as far as how much they cost to get added. If it's not on your policy, usually they should not cost additional premium because of where the marketplace has arrived over the many years of extremely high pricing and very poor coverage. We're at a place now where enhancements are something that should be included on your policy. So bricking and hardware computer replacement coverage. Yeah, at some point you realize, okay, there's bad actors, but then you have ones that are just doing things to cause you harm. And it may not even be for their financial gain. It could just be for their, I don't know, hacking gratification, however you want to term it. We don't think like they do, obviously, but something like this, the fact that the coverage is available tells us that it happens because the coverage is here to assist you when it does or if it does happen. So what is bricking and hardware cover replacement? It's basically where you're hacked into, you have a cyber attack and they attack, let's say, your servers, and they make your servers basically into a brick, meaning it is no good anymore. It can't be used. So how do you replace that? Well, specific coverage to have those servers replaced because of the fact that they hacked into it. And they can hack into any type of physical hardware within your organization, and they can turn it into a brick, make it inoperable, and there's specific coverage that is available so that that can be replaced. So interesting circumstances exist with this particular type of hack, and the policies had to be enhanced in order to cover it, because without it, it could be that it would be excluded. So in the outset, I mentioned about social engineering. Well, social engineering is something that we see the most. It is losses that take place very frequently. You may even have had an experience with it yourself, or you've known of someone that has. Well, what is it? Well, basically, it's the email that you get from your, let's say, CFO or anyone that is instructing you to provide payment to a third party. It could even be a third party vendor that is sending in a invoice, which you are aware that we have invoices due to this particular vendor. And when you read it, it looks great. And you say, here's the money. And then you get a phone call a week later and they say, are you going to finally pay the invoice? And you say, we paid the invoice a week ago. Well, socially, they engineered a dummy invoice, and the bad actors have the money and your vendors do not. And you're out of, I've seen it up to, just in my personal experience, I've seen it where it was $687 million that was taken. And we see hundreds of thousands of dollars with the fake emails. I hate to say it, but on a regular basis. We even see them very small, under $10,000, and we feel as though the bad actors are doing those very small amounts to hide under the radar of uh, of the government, where it would be a federal crime. Um, so we see it a lot. So there's something that's interesting. There's something called reverse social engineering, which is kind of a new player on the block. But again, we see a lot of different things happening. So I explained to you what social engineering is, getting those emails and then you sending money. They're coming to you. So the, this particular one, if we flip it, right, reverse it, the scammer is really wanting you to approach them as opposed to them approaching you. So as I mentioned here on the slide, the hackers usually get the target, you, to approach them, and they're tricked into asking for help. Well, how's that even possible? Well, if you're in a large organization, or however you may identify or approach your IT for assistance, well, what happens is you approach your IT for assistance, however you may do that, and because you have a virus, and it says it, you have a virus. So I'm going to approach IT. I approach IT, but in essence, when IT gets back to you, they've been watching your systems, they know how it works. They tell you, okay, hey, we have to go out to a third party for this one. Call this number. Here's the code. And you literally call, but you're somewhere over in a foreign country, and they are able to hack into your system and or have you transfer funds, whatever the case may be. It can be very complex. Or you may even get a QR code sent to your screen. Click this. We have a third party that helps us. You hit the QR code and they can hack into your system and or have you transfer funds with that. So it's a unique situation. The insurers have addressed it because social engineering is one thing. When you reverse it, you are the one that did the approaching. So how is that a coverage situation? Well, you were duped. So the insurance carriers and the policies had to be amended in order to address that one specific type of loss. So we can see how things are always evolving, and the insurers are stepping up and providing the proper coverage. So another enhancement that we see, which is very unique, is cryptojacking. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that, but they're stealing electricity to do mining for cryptocurrency. So apparently that type of mining takes a lot of electricity. They can hack into your system to take the power basically needed. So you may wonder, well, why is my system working so slow? While they're using the energy and transferring it over, and they're basically jacking it to use for their own purposes in mining for cryptocurrency. A very unique, again, a very unique situation, but the fact that we have coverage for it says that it exists and it happens. All right. So we talked about a lot of technology, right, being hacked. Um, but most importantly, because a lot of times we'll see in the insurance industry, it's like buy an insurance policy and that we're good to go. But in our reality, what we've seen, and you may have heard me mention earlier that the phishing emails and the social engineering, that's really a human element. So these bad actors are really, they're attacking human behavior. So is the first line of defense buying an insurance policy? Well, no, it's addressing human behavior and having human behavior be your first line of defense. Do things happen? Yes. And when they do happen, then you have insurance. So we as human beings have to adjust our behavior and even how we are approaching cyber insurance. So we're living in a unique time, but we adjust because we are humans, and before you know it, this will be something that is just standard, and our behavior is better, and these things happen every now and then. So here are some very common ways that we're seeing that are being used with respects to manipulating or really just depending on humans to act a certain way. Faking one of the C-suite's voices. Now we're getting into some AI, which is the new cyber from 20 years ago. So artificial intelligence creating one of the C-suite's voices. That's a very, very difficult one because if my CEO calls me on my phone and he says, Mike, I need you to do something, I am going to more than likely do it. But human behavior, if I'm adjusting that, I should say he doesn't call me often to ask me to do these type of tasks. Let me walk to his office and or call him back on his cell phone to make sure this is authorized. See, now we're getting past the human behavior aspect that's under attack. We'll see that happen quite often. AI-powered cyber attacks. So initially, there's one guy sitting somewhere, sending in an email, maybe 10, 20, whatever the case may be, to different organizations. Now, what happens is AI is able to automate these things to really bombard either one organization or many. So now we see AI being used to really increase the power of those cyber attacks that were maybe not as robust in the past. We talked about this a little bit on the last slide about reverse social engineering, where they're impersonating the IT support. We talked about the virus alert, and you contact them. It is something that we just need to be aware of. Again, we're talking about human behavior under attack here, not necessarily just a cyber attack. Phishing emails, one of the largest things that we've seen. I'm sure many of us have been dealing with this over 10 or so years. Just it is what happens, is kind of the standard every day. And now this is an interesting thing because we like to think that we have changed our behavior and that we won't be a victim of this. But if you notice this interesting statement that I have here, it's a jumble of letters, but it's a sentence. And most of the time, 90% of human beings can read this statement without it being spelled correctly. It says, according to research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. How am I able to read that fluently with jumbled words? Again, human behavior is under attack. This goes even further than behavior to really the way we're designed, because we can read words that are not words. So what do the bad actors do? Well, they change web addresses. And the way your brain is wired, you read it as the exact person it should be coming from, but it is not. And no one is to blame except our brain, which is wired that way. So I think we've seen that. I know me personally, I have seen that the most, where a web address, an email address has one letter switched. That's it. Or there's a number one instead of an I. Things of that sort. And we can blame ourselves, but in all reality, it's the way that we're designed. So this particular slide deck today is to help us to really appreciate losses associated with cyber, and how cyber insurance can help us, as well as how we can help ourselves to be the first line of defense in supporting and protecting our organizations. So we talked about AI and how the bad actors are using it. So how are the insurers using AI on the other side of that to combat things, or to even assist us as the buyers? Well, what we've seen is that insurers are adjusting their coverages. Now that AI is becoming part of our everyday society. It's part of it. It's I'm sure we use it every day, if nothing else, to help us maybe write an email better. But nonetheless, the insurers have developed AI-specific endorsements and definitions and exclusions in their policies to really counteract generative AI things as well as deep fakes, as we were talking about with the AI-generated voice of someone in the C-suite. There's a specific carrier that we work with that now includes a AI security event definition so that there's no gray areas in the policy. It explains exactly what an AI security event is, which is good to see that they are addressing these things. There's another insurance carrier, very large insurance carrier for cyber liability, one of the first. They have a fraudulent instruction clause that encompasses a deep fake driven fraud, something that wasn't there initially. And now we have a very clear understanding as to their intent and how they remain the top carrier with respects to insurance for cyber. An interesting thing that we've seen too, which has helped drive pricing down, is using AI from the insurance standpoint, where they're doing real-time monitoring of your systems, so that if they see any vulnerabilities, they provide, even before you get a quote, they will really check your systems to find any vulnerabilities that are out there using their AI. And then what happens is with the quote, they'll say, here are some vulnerabilities, and it's a mandatory, in order to bind that coverage with them, you have to fix those vulnerabilities. So that being said, what you now become is a better risk to that insurer, and that equates to lower pricing because they're now not pricing to the unknown, they're pricing to something that they can physically put their eyes on and say, this is going to cause a loss because the bad actors get in this way. And then after policies are bound, there's live cybersecurity. The insurers allow you to access a lot of their resources, which assist you in becoming a better risk. And in essence, it's kind of like an outsourced cyber security type of third party, but it's your insurer. So that's been a shift that we've seen happening with respects to AI and the environment that we live in. So all good things, all good things. All right. So that was first-party coverage and first-party coverage enhancements that we went over, as well as touching base on the AI. Third-party is the one that you usually hear in the news with the targets and the large organizations, but it does affect anyone that has an organization. And we kind of want to touch on third-party as well here. So what are the losses associated with it? Well, we have the financial protection for the fines that get incurred. Typically, the fines that are incurred are regulatory fines because you, as an organization, you were non-compliant with like the data protection laws, and you get fined obviously if there's a loss and you weren't up to speed with that, as well as any kind of lawsuits that come in. Also, data privacy liability. Most are aware of this. I know I've received emails, not emails, actually letters in the mail saying there was an event and now you can be part of the credit watch services. And I'm one of hundreds of thousands of people that were part of an organization that you may have even forgot about, but they had your data. So that's obviously a cost associated with sending out all of those letters, as well as implementing the credit watch services. Any lawsuits that come in particular, I've seen those as well. You get, you're part of a class action suit because your data was taken, and you have to hire the law firms in order to do those things. So all of those additional costs associated with the leak of data is covered by the third party section within the cyber liability policy. We talked talked a little bit about the regulatory defense, the fines and penalties based on governmental agencies. And one that's really not talked about a lot is the media liability. So if you're negligent in distributing media content, it could be someone else's website or things of that sort, and you have to defend yourself because you did it on a cyber platform. There's defense costs associated with that, and these policies step up and provide that type of coverage. Don't see a lot of those, but it does happen. So now that I've been talking for quite some time, hopefully you're still awake and you're still interested, and we're able to get an understanding of the policies, how they respond, some of the things that we deal with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, give you a little break from my voice, and I will introduce now Tim, who will talk about some things that we've seen with respects to claim scenarios. So Tim,
Great,
please
thanks.
take it away.
Thank you, Michael. A lot of information being thrown at you guys. We understand that it's this is a space that you need to be vigilant on in regards to, and it's both with your businesses and personally. It's just nobody's safe from these actors. And I'm going to read a text message from one of our employees. The text message came from our CEO. That's how it showed up on his phone. Hey, Brendan, let me know once you receive this text. He responds, hey, Charlie, just received this text. How are you doing? He says, okay, is it possible for you to complete a quick task? The employee says, yes. Okay, I need you to provide a client with Visa gift cards. So right there, I mean, it's out of normal. Our CEO is not sending a text asking for something like that, but the text message shows up at the employee's phone as our CEO's name. So we're not always on our toes thinking about this stuff, but it happens live. This happened last week. Obviously we were able to shut it down. It didn't impact anything, but it's out there. That's a real life example. But some of what we see often, something that we should be aware of, is client information breach as a result of an integration error. So if an integrator is working on a system and misconfigures a firewall or leaves an API unsecured, that allows these actors to access sensitive information of your clients. The end result of that, the client sues the integrator for failing to vet the third party. Secondly, ransomware attacks. What happens here is after the failure of applying a security measure throughout their process of the scope of work. Once again, this results in the client holds the integrator liable through a lawsuit of some time. So as Michael mentioned previously, it's not just the access to information, it's restoration costs, it's the operations are shut down. There's a lot that happens. I would argue that reputational damage might be as significant as the expense, just simply because you work hard to get your name out there and you have these clients. You don't want to be have your name dragged through the mud as a result of an oversight. You can click through the next one, Michael. Here's another scenario: a flawed integration, a poorly tested system integration that results in a client servers to crash. Once again, we're looking at lost revenue and reputational harm. There is a breach notification law throughout all of the U.S. It requires all clients, whether they're impacted or not, your clients will receive notification that a breach of some sort occurred. Again, we're looking at reputational harm here, outside of the financial harm. Malware introduced via third party. The integrator or to incorporate a third-party software package. The software has malware in it, obviously unknowingly to the integrator. Once again, end result, always, it always falls to a legal situation. Client sues the integrator for failing to vet the third party. None of this is malicious on your part or negligent on your part. It's just that these actors find ways into these systems and into your systems. And it's not something that you can always see or hear. Sometimes they're in your systems for months at a time without you actually knowing it. Jump to the next one, Mike. Here's an example of this social engineering. Actually, this is a live example from a client of mine this year. The fraud phone number from their financial institution was spoofed. So the actors spoofed the phone number. They called one of the office locations. They got an employee on the phone. The employee verified that the phone number was accurate for the fraud department at their bank. They moved forward with the questions from the actors move along. Next thing you know, they've got $3.4 million that was wired out within one Friday afternoon. And again, Friday afternoon in the summer, they're very strategic in when their approaches are and how they approach it. We were lucky enough to claw back about, I would say, 70% of those wires. It's an ongoing process to this day, but again, the social engineering, they spoof a phone number. The employee, probably may not have been as vigilant as they should be, but it happens. The text message from the leadership, just read that live example to you. And then the other thing here is the adoption of AI. It's something that we feel like all of us are not pressured into, but we should kind of move towards. With that, it comes a lot of unknowns. I don't think anyone truly knows what this AI space is able to offer or what the risk or exposures are. I would say AI now is what cyber was 15 years ago. We figured cyber out. We're figuring out AI as we speak. But the adoption of AI, it leaves unknowns, it leaves sensitivity, it leaves exposures. So it's something that we want to make sure that we're accounting for when we're looking at our risk to management as a whole. And I'll send it back to Mike here. And these numbers are just recently from this week. We got some industry reports. The numbers seem high, but they're real. What was interesting in this report was that the U.S. is behind on their diligence to protecting themselves from cyber attacks. Outside of the U.S., these numbers are shrunk. They've sort of adopted the exposure and the risk. So we're hopeful that these conversations are able to help you guys realize that the threat is real, and let's chat about the measures that we can look into to protect you from these exposures.
Okay. Thanks so much, Tim. Again, a lot of information, but it's pertinent because we deal with this regularly. And how many times have we seen, a headline such as this? Average breach cost hits $10.22 million. And you think to yourself, well, maybe that's for, again, like a Target or, top 50 company. But in all reality, a percentage of revenue has grown so much more in dealing with a breach cost because of all the services that go along with it. The regulatory fines have increased. The government they increase those fines because they want you to implement the proper protection. So they want you to comply with those data protection laws. And if you don't, and a breach happens, then therein lies the higher regulatory fines and the genesis of that. So not a bad thing, but unless you don't do it. So that's what adds to those higher breach costs. And then on top of that, paying more dollars to detect and escalate the breaches. So there's firms out there that do that. Obviously, that's another part of the cost. So it's not just the amount of money you lost. You're now adding these additional costs on top, and we can see how the ultimate costs keep rising. One of the biggest pieces that I think sometimes is overlooked is the operational disruption. So if it's taking you 100 days to fully recover, maybe they bricked your system and you didn't have a backup system, or they, all of those things in order to get back to making your revenue is additional funds. The business interruption piece, you're still paying payroll, right? So dollars are going out the door, but what about the dollars coming in? Are you able to service? Do you have a disaster recovery plan based on cyber alone? See, again, things like this keep adding to the breach costs, and it keeps rising. And Tim mentioned about the AI and the proper implementation of that. You know, how can you properly implement when it's still new to the point of individuals learning? Yeah, we'll do the best we can with the information that we have currently, but is there still a gap that exists? Well, the bad actors are the ones that are looking for the gaps. And when they find the gaps, then we say, oh no, it wasn't actually implemented correctly, and then you're back to the drawing board until you get to the point where you say, okay, we figured this out. Along the way, there's going to be some bumps and bruises called losses. So that's what we see now, the oversight of the AI, and really taking a really measured approach to it. That's really the first line of defense there. But again, with those gaps, we see that the breach costs are rising. I like the first bullet point here. I think it's the most impactful, that security must be treated as foundational. It's not after we get it implemented, let's now figure out the security piece. It's really the foundation. And this is really specific to you SIs, that a lot of the incidents occur in the supply chain. That's what's being compromised, because you may run a very tight ship, especially in your implementation, and your quality control and your services that are monitoring, very tight ship. But what about your supply chain? What about the apps that you're using? What about those APIs and the plugins? Do they run such a tight ship? Are you using those contracts between you and your supply chain vendors to really transfer that liability to them in the case that something happens? Are you requiring them to carry cyber liability to offset anything that takes place, as opposed to using, hey, these guys, it works well with our system, but they're good guys. Unfortunately, that doesn't work anymore. And there's a lot of security. Like I said, it must be treated as foundational, especially with your supply chain. So that's really what drove these costs up. We've seen them rise over the last few years, and this is by far the highest that we've seen it. So, conclusion, really short and sweet, that the cyber cover helps our clients avoid financial losses amid cyber incidents. That's really it in a nutshell. And we're the ones that manage all those nuances that we've been talking about for the past 45 minutes. So no need to fret. We're here to help. All right. So now we're getting to the question and answer phase. And I think, let's see
Hi.
here.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi. Hi. I just
Okay.
thought I'd let you dangle out there for a little
Thanks,
while.
Lisa. I
See
was
what
like,
you
wait
do.
a minute, what do I do next?
Little test for you.
We
Okay, so
appreciate it.
of course. So if you have any questions, I'm talking to the audience now, please feel free to let us know. For starters, though, I was curious, you mentioned a lot of different things that can happen, but in your experience for system integrators, like what would you say is the most frequent type of claim that you see?
Okay. Tim, you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah, it would have to be social engineering. And I wouldn't limit that to, solely this industry. Social engineering is the most frequent simply because they can access an individual who throughout the course of our days, we have a million things going on, right? So they find a weakness where they find it easier to access an individual and find a weakness there, as opposed to finding a weakness in a system that might have all the safeguards in place. They find that human error is easier. So social engineering is the most frequent and I would say the easier one on their part.
Yeah, I totally believe it. They are getting so sophisticated. Some of these emails you get or texts that you get, they're very realistic. I had a boss in this job prior to mine who got his, I don't know, somebody sent his secretary something that said, "Oh, you need to send John money. He's trapped in like wherever." And she almost did it because, like you mentioned in your talk, when your CEO says you got to go do this, you go do it. You're not gonna leave him trapped in somewhere. All right, next question. Uh, so would you say like this insurance, a cyber insurance is expensive? I guess that's kind of a relative term. But how would you answer that question?
I'll take it, Tim.
Sure.
Uh, is it expensive? I will say it used to be very expensive. So using that in the past tense says that the pricing has now really, it's kind of like righting the ship. It's been righted, so to speak. Um, really what we've seen is that, um, it's probably been about 20 years or so, with the development of insurance policies. There's been a lot of new insurance carriers. There's been the advent of AI. There has been lots and lots of actuarial data being used with respects to losses, with respects to how they can manage the risk up front. So with all of those things in place, the pricing has really gone down quite a
Yeah.
bit. We have seen policies, really robust policies with even with the enhancements. I hate to throw a number out, especially in a webinar, but for some clients that were spending, $15,000 for $1 million because they didn't have the proper controls in place, now that they're required to do that and all of the other things that I just mentioned, they're spending $5,000 or $6,000 now. So that's a quite a bit of a decrease. I remember probably 5 to 10 years ago, going through renewals with some of my clients, and on the proposals and prior to the proposals, I was informing them, be prepared. We're looking at 50% increases. 50%. And that was the starting, that's out of the door, out of the gate. So that doesn't happen anymore, based on all those factors that I just mentioned. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. So I do have one final question before we wrap things up. I kind of wish I'd ended on the expensive one because that sounded positive, but whatever. I do have one last question. Are there companies like small companies might be thinking, I don't need this insurance. That's never gonna happen to me. I mean, what's your advice for smaller companies in terms of buying this coverage?
It's funny. Tim and I, we talk to prospective clients and some clients that have older thinking, where they say, small companies, why would they hack us? Or the things that we do don't really expose us. What we found is that bad actors will rather prey on the weak, meaning those that are smaller because they don't spend as much money to be robust in what they're doing in protection. So it's an easier mark for a smaller company because they don't put the resources at protecting their data. And that's what we've seen. I think I even mentioned it during the talk that what we'll see is small, like small little under $10,000. So if I'm holding your $800,000, $500,000 revenue company hostage, and I say, give me $7,500 and I'll release it, what are you going to do? You're going to give them the $7,500 and you keep moving. So if they do that 10 times, 100 times, these bad actors are, getting away with a lot of money. So again, it doesn't matter the size. I think, like I said, that one bullet point was so impactful that you have to make security foundational. And I think that is the most important thing, whether you're small or a large company, because in the end, you protect yourself, your data, and your clients, which ultimately results in protecting your company.
And I'll just say to that, Lisa, I mean, we make it a point here at ECBM to offer every client cyber, and that offer is in writing. I don't care the size or the revenue or the employee count. We make it a point because it's an E&O exposure on our side if we're not offering that. And we make it, we're so emphatic about it simply because it's just the Wild West out there. These guys do not, they don't discriminate. So from an E&O standpoint and the importance of it, we make sure we offer it to everyone. We explain the risk and the exposure. And I think that kind of, rule of thumb here just lends to how crazy it is out there and our value of, the importance of the coverage.
So I lied and said that that was the last question, but I actually have the last question. We're talking today about cyber insurance, but does ECPM, is it a one-stop shop for system integrators? Can they go to you and just be like, I need you to give me all the things?
Certainly.
Ye-
I threw
yes.
the link in the chat box. That's our landing page. But yes, we write everything and everything. So we created a proprietary program with the CSIA specifically for the association's members. We're the only broker that has access to that. It's on the liability side of things, but yes, we write the work comp, the auto, the umbrella, the cyber. It's a one-stop shop.
Awesome. All right. Now, truly, I am done. And my colleague Holly is going to put up my final slides while we wrap up. I'm just going to say, on behalf of CSIA, thank you to our speakers, Tim and Mike, for this informative discussion. And thank you to ECPM for presenting this event. And of course, thank you for attending. And that's a wrap. Once again, thanks. And everybody, have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.